Hey everyone, this is Chris here from Locofy. By the end of this video, you'll learn how to take a popular design from the Figma community and turn it into code using Locofy. What Locofy does is that it helps you turn your designs into production-ready front-end code for mobile apps and web, enabling you to ship products 3 to 4 times faster with your existing design tools, tech stacks, and workflows. I'll be guiding you through this process from start to finish, end to end. We'll go from finding a beautiful design on Figma to pixel perfect, high quality code and deploying it to a live website. We can also export the code so that you can edit and customize it using Locofy. Alright, let's hop right in. We are now on the Figma community page and we're going to look for a popular design to convert. Let's search for a crypto dashboard. This design has 1,300 copies. Let's go ahead and Locofy this dashboard. Now that we have a copy of the design, let's start to convert this dashboard into code. First, let's fire up our Locofy plugin. Before we begin, let me quickly introduce to you our Locofy plugin. We have two main widgets. Firstly is the tagging of layers, and the other is drag and drop. So what exactly is the tagging of layers? To a human eye, it is actually very easy to tell that this is a button and that this over here is an input field. But to the computer, it is just a bunch of text and rectangles. So what tagging is, that it allows us to indicate to the Locofy plugin what kind of element this is so that we can easily generate the code for it. But right before we do that, I'm going to have a quick look at the layers over here. You can see that the layer structure of this button has a vector and a rectangle inside of it, and we want to avoid this because it will generate unnecessary elements in the code. Typically, we want the button as a frame with a vector inside of it without the rectangle. In this case, we can simply hit auto layout on this group, and you can see that Figma has converted it into a frame over here. Let's name it as button. Now it's a purple frame with the fill color and the border radius without the rectangle inside of it, which is what we want. We can go ahead and center a line to make sure that it always stays centered. Now we can proceed to tag the button. You'll be taken to the properties page and you'll see that we support the most popular UI libraries. This design, however, is a custom design, so we can go ahead and select none. Afterwards, you can proceed to add your basic attributes over here and any advanced attributes if required. We'll move on to the Styling and Layouts tab. This tab helps you take care of the responsiveness and styling of your button across different states. Now over here, you will notice in the top row of tabs, we have the 1200, 768, and 428 tabs, which corresponds to different types of browser widths. What this means is that when we are inside one of these tabs, for example, the 428 pixels media query tab, any settings that we change inside of here will only apply to our elements when the device size is smaller than 428 pixels in width. Let's have a look at the next row of tabs. Over here, these tabs correspond to the different states, so we can actually style this button for its hover state, press state, disabled state, and so on. I'm going to add a quick hover effect by clicking into the hover tab, and we can simply change it into a slightly darker color, for example. Great, we have now added the hover effect. Let's head into the final tab, which is the Actions tab. Here, you can take care of your user flows. For example, if you would like to scroll to a different part of the page when you click on this button, or to change to a different page, or even open another URL. We can do all of these inside of the Actions tab. Here, we might want this to take us to a different page. But we don't have another page here, but I'll just create another frame here for now. Let's head back into this button over here again and use this change page action. Now, we can select another page either by choosing a frame, or we can use locate mode. I'll use locate mode and I'll select the frame which I've created. Do take note that if you're using components, you just have to do it once and it will apply to the child components. Now that we have tagged the button, let's go ahead and preview our design to see how it looks like. This is actually running on live code, so you can actually interact with all of the elements which we have set up so far. For example, our button which we've added a hover effect for, and also the action, so that when I click on this button, it will take us to the search page which we've created. Let's take a look at this input field over here. You can go ahead and tag it. But before we do that, I'm going to have a quick look at the layers at the side. And again, you can see that the layer structure is a group with text and a rectangle inside of it. Similar to the previous case with the button, you'll want to avoid using a rectangle with text on top inside of a group, as this will result in unnecessary code. We want to have the button as a frame with text inside of it. And to do this, we can simply hit auto layout on this group. You can see that Figma has converted it into a frame without the rectangle inside. Now all that's left is to match the length of the frame with the original dimensions of the rectangle. Let's name the frame here as a search term. We can go ahead and center a line with a left constraint so that the input field matches the original design. Now, let's go ahead and tag this input field. Once again, it's a custom design, so we'll choose none. You see that there are more basic attributes we can add. We can also tweak the values. In this case, we have auto-detected the enter search term inside here and placed it as a placeholder. We can choose different types of inputs and add more advanced attributes if required. This is good for now. So let's go ahead inside of styling and layouts. Once again, you can take care of your input styling and different states and for actions as well. We're not going to need any actions here, so we'll go ahead and click done. So let's check out our input field on preview and see that it's fully interactive. Awesome. Alright, let's talk about the responsiveness of our design next. We have the sidebar and the main panel. We might want the sidebar to not show for smaller devices. Let's see how we can achieve this with Locofy. Let's frame up these groups first. And over here, you can see that the side panel already exists as a group. But look, we have a rectangle as a background within the group, which is not what we want. To remove this, simply add auto layout and you can see that the rectangle background is gone. You want to draw a frame around each section, so I'm going to go ahead and press the F key to draw a frame around the main panel over here. Now what happens is that Figma will automatically add the items inside of the frame itself. Great. Now let's name each of these sections as well so that we can refer to them easily. We can name this as the sidebar, and this section over here is the main panel. Let's add auto responsiveness first to the entire frame so that you can view the changes on the plugin when you apply them. Locofy can read the Figma constraints and auto layout settings you have added to generate responsive code so that it behaves the way you want it to. Now we'll use the Locofy plugin to handle some of the ways that we can stack elements or show and hide elements and so on. In this case, let's hide the sidebar for smaller devices. First, let's tag this as a container since it contains all of the dashboard, wallet, statistics, links, and so on. Next, let's head to the styling and layouts where we are going to now hide this on tablet devices and smaller. So click on the 768 media query tab and change this from show to hide. So now let's have a quick look at the final preview. However, note that the main panel is not looking very responsive. And this is what we're looking for. This is easy to achieve, so let's work on that next. Alright, so Locofy also reads your Figma auto layout settings and constraints in order to understand your design intention and what should happen when you resize your design. So let's work on the Figma design next to apply these auto layout settings and constraints to ensure that your design is responsive. First, we need to ensure that the individual elements are responsive. Now let's pull out each of the elements to work on them individually. Alright, cool. Let's start with the foodpanda column, which we have pulled out, and make it responsive. We can close our plugin for now. You can see from the layers that there are a couple of rectangles within the group and we want to remove this. There is a rectangle filling up the foodpanda icon and another rectangle filling up the white space within the column. For groups with more than 2 rectangles which we want to remove, we can ungroup the entire column first so that we can easily work to remove the rectangles. Let's go ahead and ungroup everything here. For the foodpanda image and its rectangle, which you can see over here, let's apply auto layout in order to remove the rectangle. And you can see now that the rectangle has been removed, which is what we want. Let's name this the foodpanda icon. We can center align the image to make sure that it stays centered. The next rectangle which we want to remove is the white column, which you can see over here, represented by rectangle 20. So in order to remove this rectangle, let's first frame everything within the rectangle. First, let's frame the foodpanda icon and a description beside it together like so. Next, we can frame up the price and timing. So you can achieve this either by holding down Shift and then pressing Option Command G for Mac users, or by holding down Shift and then manually applying a frame. Let me show you the second way. So you hold down Shift and then manually apply a frame. Alright, next, select all of the groups with the rectangle and apply the auto layout. And now, you can see that the rectangle is gone. To make this responsive, simply go to the Auto Layout tab on Figma and select the space between option within Advanced Layout to ensure that the icon and price stays constricted to the left and right side of the column respectively when you resize the column. So let's do that right now. Space between. And now you can see that this column is responsive the way we want it to be. Lastly, for easier reference, let's rename this column as the Food Panda column. Alright, cool. Next, for the GPU mining column, we can observe that there are three elements within, which are the icon, the description, as well as the switch. So what we can do here is that we can group the icon with the description together, like so, and then apply auto layout to the entire column. Next, we can go to the auto layout section of Figma and ensure that the elements are spaced out properly when resizing. So we can select space between, and now we can see that this column resizes the way we want to. Alright, we are done with this. Let's rename this section as GPU mining. For the next column, which involves the stock price of the crypto exchange, highlighted by this purple square over here, we can observe that there is a rectangle within the layers. Again, we'll simply add auto layout, like so. And you can see that the rectangle is gone. From here, just center align the frame and we're good to go. Let's rename the frame as the exchange rate. Next, for the Ethereum wallet, all we have to do is group the layers together as such. I'll group the center portion together. And simply add auto layout and then center align. You can see now that this is responsive. And we're done with this segment. Moving on, for the identity section, we can observe that there are four elements within. And these are the two text lines, which you can see over here, the switch, and the rectangle. So now let's frame up all of the elements within the rectangle first, so we can work towards removing it. We can first frame the two texts with the description together, like this. And then simply add auto layout to the entire section. We can now observe that the rectangle is gone, which is what we want. Next, go to the auto layout section of Figma. And to ensure that the elements are spaced out properly when resizing, we can select the space between option from the advanced layout. Awesome. This section is now responsive and we're done with this. For the last section, which is the estimated daily, all we have to do is to group these two elements together and then apply auto layout to the entire section. Lastly, apply space between from the advanced auto layout settings on Figma. Cool, this is now responsive as well. Let's rename this as the estimated daily. Now all the elements within the frame are responsive. And let me just show you. Now just apply the methods which I have just showed you to all the other remaining sections. So on this matter, just a quick tip. To avoid needing to reapply the settings to each individual instance, when working with your own design, you should plan to use a master component and apply these auto layout settings and constraints, such that it will also apply to all of the child components. There's still one element left to make responsive, and that is the Bitcoin section, which you can see in the center of the design over here. This section is trickier to make responsive as it contains a logo and a vector which extends outside of the frame. But don't worry, I'll break down this process for you. First, let's pull out the entire Bitcoin section so that it will be easier for us to make responsive. Now that we have pulled out the design, you want to group the graphics together and then pull it out of the Bitcoin section. Next, frame the transition and wallet as such. And then group them together in a one frame. We can apply a space between autolayout for this frame. Now, frame all of the words together and apply autolayout with a center align. Next, apply autolayout to the entire Bitcoin card with a left constraint to make the words align with the left column. Then, paste the vector inside of the frame and apply absolute position to adjust the Bitcoin logo and vector design to match the original design. Let me show you how. From here, let's use the absolute position and adjust the design to match the original. Lastly, add a right constraint for the vector so that it aligns with the right side of the frame. You can do this by adjusting the constraints. Now you can see that this section is responsive and that the frame resizes with the vector and logo aligned with the right side. Even though we have made all of the elements within our design responsive, the entire design is not responsive yet. We now need to structure the overall layers for the main panel in order to make this whole section, which you see over here, responsive. Next, for the top section, we might want the Welcome to Dashboard portion to be responsive and the search portion to be fixed when we're resizing the design. Let me show you how you can do this. First, group the icons below the Welcome to Dashboard as one group, like so. And then proceed to group this entire section together. We can name this section Welcome to Dashboard for easier reference. Next, for the search bar, which is this region over here, group the button and the search term together, like this. And then group this entire section as one group. We can name this section the search section. Finally, group both of these groups together and apply auto layout. We can name this entire section the top section. Recall that we want the Welcome to Dashboard section to be responsive, which is this section over here, and the search portion to be fixed while resizing. Now we need to apply auto layout to the entire Welcome to Dashboard frame, which will be the parent container. We can apply fill with and hug content for the welcome to dashboard text, like so. And then apply auto layout to the row of icons below with fill width and hard contents. And subsequently space between. Now we can see that this entire welcome to dashboard section is responsive. Next, for the search section, we can apply auto layout to the entire section first. We can then apply fill container for the search text, and then auto layout for the bottom section. Set the responsiveness of the bottom section to be fill container and hard contents, and then fill container for the search term within. Finally, set the auto layout of the entire search section to be fixed width, and then the auto layout of the welcome dashboard section to be fill containers and hard content. We can now see that not only the search section, but also that the entire top section is responsive. Now let's make the middle portion of the design, which is this section over here, responsive. So we might want the company section and the exchange rate section, which are these two portions of the design, to snap down at smaller breakpoints. Let's first group them together. And then name this group company and exchange. And then group the entire middle section together like this. And we can just call this entire middle segment the middle section. For the overview section, which is this frame over here, we need to first group the wallet sections at the bottom. We can name this frame as the wallet section. We can then add auto layout to this entire overview section. Set the auto layout for the entire segment to fixed width. For the overview text and Bitcoin card, set the auto responsiveness to fill width and hard height. Lastly, for the wallet section, apply an auto layout first, as such, and then set its responsiveness to fill width and hard height, and then apply the same to the individual wallet segments within. Fill, fill, fill. We can now see that the entire segment is responsive. Now, recall that we want this section of the middle segment to snap down at smaller breakpoints, which is the company and exchange section which we have framed up. But in terms of responsiveness, before this segment snaps down, we might only want the company section to be responsive when resizing. Let's first apply auto layout to the entire company and exchange section, and then set the auto layout for the exchange section to be fixed width, and the auto layout of the company section to be fill width. Lastly, set the auto layout for all the columns within the company section to fill width. Now we can see that this section is responsive the way we want it to be. Now, in order to make everything responsive, we can apply auto layout to the entire middle section. Set the auto layout for the overview section as fixed width, and the auto layout for the company and exchange rate section as fill width. We can see now that the entire middle section is responsive. For the bottom section of the design, we might want the security section to be responsive and the mining status section to be responsive. Let's first make the security section responsive, which is this region over here. Let's group the identity together and the phones together, and then combine them into one group, and then group this together with the security text. And we can name this entire group the security section. Then apply auto layout to the security section, which is the parent container, and child containers with fill width where necessary. I'll just do this entire process real quickly right now. And now we can see that the entire security section is responsive. Simply apply the same grouping styles and techniques which I have done for the security section to the mining status section. Finally, in order to make the bottom section responsive, simply group these two groups together. And we can rename this frame as the bottom section. Then we can add auto layout to the bottom section and apply fill width to the security section and fixed width to the mining status section. And with that, the bottom section is now responsive. So we're left with one last step in order to make this entire design responsive. All that we're left to do is to add an auto layout to the main panel and then set the responsiveness of the three sections within to fill container for its width. Now that our entire design is responsive, let's observe using the Locofy plugin to see at which breakpoint does the design start breaking down. As you can observe, from 1300 pixels, the design starts looking crowded. In this case, we might want the sidebar to not show in order for the design to look more fluid. Let me show you how we can do this. Let's close our Locofy preview for now. So in order to do this, first we can click on the sidebar and we can see that it already has been previously tagged as a container. Next, we can click the edit button beside the tag. From here, we can go to the styling and layout tab and manually configure our media query tab to 1300 pixels like so. From here, simply go to display, size and positions, and then click hide. And then now you can see that from 1300 pixels, the sidebar disappears, which gives our design more space. So for our next breakpoint, which is around 1050 pixels, you can see that the top as well as the middle section is starting to get crowded. For our top section, we might want the search bar to snap downwards below the welcome to dashboard. Let me show you how you can achieve this. We can tag the top section, which is this section over here, as a container first. So let's go ahead and tag it as a container. Next, we can go to the Styling and Layout tab and manually configure our media query tab to 1050 pixels, like such. From here, we can simply go to the layout and direction and change the directional layout to downwards, like this. Now you can see that the search section snaps downwards, which is what we want. But over here, we might want to make some adjustments to the width of the search button, as well as do something about the gap between the Welcome to Dashboard as well as the search section. Let me show you how you can do this. In order to adjust the gap, we have to first select the top section container, like this. And then afterwards, we go to the Advanced CSS Properties section at the bottom of Styling and Layout and add a gap of 30 pixels. Now, you can see that the gap has been adjusted and that the design looks a lot more aesthetic. Now, let's make this search button to be full width at this breakpoint. First, we have to select the search section and then tag it as a container. And then go to the Styling and Layouts, and at the 1050 breakpoint, we have to set the width to 100%. And we can do so by going to the display size and position and changing the settings as such. Now we can see that the search bar is full width and the design looks a lot nicer. Now let's take a look at our overall design again. As you can see at this breakpoint, the middle section starts to get a little bit crowded. So at this point, we might want the exchange rate section as well as the company section to snap downwards from here. Let me show you how you can do this. First, we'll have to tag our middle section as a container. After which, simply just go to Styling and Layout and select the 1050 pixels tab. From here, just go to Layout Direction and change the layout direction from vertical to horizontal. In order to ensure that the Bitcoin section is full width at this breakpoint, we have to first tag it as a container. After which, we simply go to Styling and Layout and select the 1050 Media Query tab. And from here, we just change the width to 100%. Now, at this breakpoint, we might also want the mining status to snap down below the security segment as the design is getting too crowded. In order to do so, we can first tag the bottom as a container as well, and then after which, simply go to Styling Layout, and from here, select the 1050 Media Query, and then change the directional layout from horizontal to vertical for this breakpoint. From here, the design actually looks great on our preview. However, you can see at around 600 pixels, the middle section with the exchange rate and the companies is getting a little bit too crowded. As such, we might want the company section to snap down one more time at this breakpoint. In order to achieve this, we can tag the exchange rate and the company section as a container first. Let me show you how this is done. we can first tag this as a container, and then next we can go to the styling and layout tab and manually configure our media query tab to 600 pixels, like so. From here, simply go to the layout and direction and change the direction of the layout from horizontal to vertical for this breakpoint. Lastly, in order to ensure that the exchange rate section is full width at this breakpoint, we have to first tag it as a container. Then go to the 600 pixels tab within the styling and layout and change its width to 100%. Now that we are done with the tweaks, let's go ahead and preview right before we sync to the Locofy Builder, where we can view our code. So we'll go ahead and preview this design. And this is the final result that we have. Before we sync to the Locofy Builder, just want to note one thing over here, is that in order to get the best code, you should rename your layers, as the code will be generated based on your layer naming. Now that we're ready, let's go ahead and sync our code. So to do so, it's very simple. Just click on the view code, and you can select a couple of frames and only sync those items, or you can sync all of the frames. In this case, we have a very simple page, which is the search page which we created, but let's go ahead to sync it as well since we have an action linking to it. And then click on the view code in Builder, and then let's head over to the Builder. Welcome to the Locofy Builder, and this is where you'll be taken to after syncing your designs from the Locofy plugin. As you can see, our crypto dashboard has been loaded inside of the Locofy Builder, and there's a couple of things that you can do over here. So the first thing is that of course you can view your code. Next, you can also create components and add props for dynamic content. Lastly, you can view and share a live prototype with your stakeholders, collaborators, teammates, and so on. Finally, you can of course export your code or deploy it directly with one of our integrations. So I'm just going to walk you through all of these items one by one. Firstly, it is to view your code. As you can see, we have the code over here at the bottom panels, and we have our React code for this project on the left side and the CSS on the right. And the corresponding code has been generated for each page. Over here, you can also tweak your code frameworks such as TypeScript, styling, and file naming. And you can change these settings according to your team's coding styles and standards. Next, I'll be showing you how you can easily create components and make props for dynamic content. So for example, with these wallets over here, for each of these cards, you might want to pull some data from your backend in order to render these cards dynamically. So we're going to create a component, and this is very easy to do. First, let's select the item over here and make sure that we get the card. Then we are going to click over here and make a component. Let's go ahead and name it wallet card. So we have turned this into a component. You can see we have a new piece of code over here called the wallet card TSX. And this is the code for the card itself. And we have the CSS on the right side here as well. Now we can also add props over here. So for example, the title, we might want this to be dynamically filled. So let's go ahead and create a prop. We can call this wallet title. And now you can see inside of the wallet card code itself, we have a prop called wallet title. Over here, now let's go ahead and turn another one of these into the same component. And that's how we reuse components. So let's choose the second wallet card over here. And instead of creating a new one, we can choose an existing card. And so you'll notice that some of the props have been automatically added. So that is it for creating components and adding props. Next, we'll be showing you a live responsive prototype. So we'll go ahead and click View Prototype over here. On this page, you can also share this prototype with your colleagues, your stakeholders, and your team by simply copying a link or sending them an email. You can do so by pressing the Share Prototype button over here. We have our design running in the browser, and it's fully responsive, just as how we have set it up. Now, we can also interact with it. You can see our hover effects that we have added, as well as the search button, which takes us to page 2. The beauty of this is that with this responsive prototype, you no longer have to create multiple prototypes, one for each screen size. With this, you can just have one prototype, and you can share it and view it on all your different devices. And also, in this way, your stakeholders, teammates, collaborators can all come in and experience what your design will look like in code without even writing a single line of code. This is also super helpful for user research and getting early feedback on your products. Finally, let's take a look at our options for exporting code or deploying it. Let's go back to the builder and click Export. So firstly, you can export screens and components. You can just export the components alone. So for example, you can see here that we have our wallet card, which we have previously created. Or you can get the screens along with all components. And finally, just select an export method. So you can choose to download a zip file or add to GitHub. So once you have configured this, you can make a pull request to your repository directly from inside of Builder. So for now, I'm going to download the zip file. And we have downloaded it. Now let's go ahead and open this in our code editor. We have now opened our export in VS Code. And you can see we have our components, which is the wallet card, as well as our pages, which is the crypto dashboard, as well as the search page 2, which we have created. So now let's go ahead and do a quick npm install to get our dependencies installed. So our dependencies are installed. Now let's run an npm start. And you can see our design is now running on local machine and is working just as how we have set it up in terms of responsiveness. And also for the actions which we have added. For example, this search button which takes us to page 2. Once we actually have the code on our local device, we can go ahead and add our logic layers and connect to the backend and integrate with your APIs. And so very soon we will also be releasing a couple of features where you can easily connect with APIs and pull data from your databases directly from inside of the Locofy Builder. Alright, so you can see how we took a popular design from the Figma community and turned it into code. Typically, a design like this might take a week or longer to convert to code. But with Locofy, we have managed to do this entire process in less than an hour. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and quick guide on how to convert a community template, and we look forward to bringing you more of such guides. Let us know what you would like to see And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Once again, thank you for joining us today on this video, and we look forward to seeing you locifying your designs. Have a great day, everyone.